as you can see, it is Sunday the 16th of May, and we are gonna continue our little deadly premonition adventure, of course. Last time... What the fuck did we do last time? Last time we did the autopsy and we got pulled into the other world, the red world, where we battled some zombies by smacking them across the face with a fucking knife and just absolutely demolishing them. And then we also met Harry Stewart, the mysterious capitalist man and entrepreneur dude with a gas mask on his face who speaks in rhymes to his assistant, who then very annoyingly speaks his lines out. He's gonna come back later, of course, because you know he's one of those characters who knows things about things, and he knows about the mystery of the town and blah 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 blah. So yeah. What we're gonna do now, I don't actually know. I don't remember. So that's gonna be interesting. Let's get to it.
But why? Why did she leave her here?
Only Miss Stiletto Heels knows the reason for that.
Okay, so that was a really good chapter and a really good length for a chapter, and things are really starting to pick up. And it's at this point in the game where you really gotta be paying attention to what is happening, because there are so many little details about the investigation that are thrown at you. And while your understanding of the events won't matter in a gameplay sense, it is still very exciting to guess along to who the murderer is, and all that starts now. But first, we have to get to where the actual chapter takes place, which is up on a mountain. And to get to the mountain, we have to drive.
We need to solve this case, not bicker among ourselves.
And if you can remember in the beginning, when we started this, I talked about how the controls were not good. And that very much extends to the driving controls. But there is something really odd about the driving controls. The driving controls, don't get me wrong, are complete and utter shite. It feels like... I don't even know how to describe it. It feels like you're driving a tank on an icy lake. That's what it feels like. It takes so much effort to turn the car, but when the car starts turning, it turns so fucking fast and you can't stop the car from turning again. So when you're trying to do something as simple as just take a 90-degree turn, you either have the option of crashing into whatever is on the other side of the road in the 90-degree turn, or do a complete 180 and then continue from your complete 180 and then, you know, turn out and drive on. And it's so fucking bad, which is actually a bit of a shame, because there are a lot of shortcuts in the game that go through the forest, and they are very fun to take, and or rather they would have been very fun to take if the cars handled better. And I don't know why they don't handle better. They could just give them more weight and that would make them funner. But as I said, they are weirdly in depth. Like, they have a fuel system. They will run out of fuel and there's a gas station in town and you will need to gas up at that gas station. And they have a damage system. If you damage them too much, they will break down and you will have to call for another one or run back to where another car is. And that's not even all. In a normal game, you know, your car is gonna have lights. That's cool. And when you're gonna press the brake button, you know, the stop lights are gonna come on, the red ones in the back for those who don't drive a car. And in this game, there is that, but there is so much more. There is a button. This is a game where you don't get your camera controls separated from your movement controls. You control this like it's a Zelda game on the N64. But in the car, you do get not only a separate button for the windshield wipers to turn on, which doesn't even fucking matter because you can't drive in first person because it's absolutely shit. You also get a separate button for the right blinker for, when you want to blink when you turn the car in this game where there is not really any traffic and people won't really react to what you're doing, whether or not you use the turn signals. And you not only get a turn signal to the right, you also get a turn signal to the left. And you also get a separate button for your lights, your lights that are in front of the car, or if you're in a cop car, the siren. I cannot understand how they could spend time animating windshield wipers and getting blinking lights right on a car, but couldn't get the car right itself. That is so fucking weird. And also weirdly endearing, right? I mean, they probably put more effort into getting the windshield wipers to not only look right, but also sound right and act right than they did for the car handling. And that's so weird.
Anna's body was discovered by the woodsman Jim Green, along with his 2 grandchildren, Isaac and Isaiah.
But anyways, we use this shitty ass car with its weirdly in-depth windshield wiper mechanics, and we drive it up a mountain. And it's one of those moments in the game where it's a little bit too long. The distance from where you are to where you're going is a little bit too long. And it makes you appreciate the game itself. And that mechanic where you can talk to the other NPCs in the car. Yeah,
Agent Morgan, how much longer do you want to keep talking?
That mechanic actually backfires because you can click it maybe once, maybe twice per drive, and then they will tell you to shut up if you do it again, because they don't want to chit chat all day, especially not with York, because York, he's an annoying asshole, as we've established earlier. So this drive is maybe 10 minutes long, and after a minute or so you run out of conversation options with these people, and the only thing you can do is ask them questions which they will then tell you to shut the fuck up. So the majority of this drive up to this mountain is just you alone with your thoughts and the terrible driving mechanics. And it really makes you appreciate the game and the world that it takes place in, because it's a long ass drive, and it would be a long ass drive in real life to go to a sort of nature reserve in a rural area that's outside the town. And I don't know, there's a certain authenticity in how that is presented, which I appreciate a lot. It also gives you a bit of calm before what is gonna happen next. And what is gonna happen next is that we're gonna go to the crime scene. Well, we are at the crime scene where Anna was murdered.
Is this government land?
No, it's private. Owned by Harry.
This whole area?
And that's what the chapter is really about. It's about investigating this crime scene where this very young girl was murdered. We arrive at the scene, and the twins that we saw in the beginning discover the body, and that we later saw in the red room say cryptic shit to us. They are here. And we interrogate them under much protest from both George and Jim Green, their grandfather, and Emily.
Come on, they're just kids. They have no idea what really happened to Anna.
That doesn't matter. You agree with me, right, Zach?
How heartless. Do you ever think of other people's feelings, ever?
Emily's right. That's stone cold, even for the sake of investigation.
And York, he's really not popular in this moment when he starts to interrogate these children, but that's one of York's good qualities. York knows that these children don't understand what is going on. They see this horrible murder through a completely other lens. They saw this beautiful sort of like theater play of Anna being presented very beautifully in a beautiful dress with flowers and all that shit. So he tries to ask him a couple of questions, but they don't really know anything because, you know, they weren't present for the crime. They were just the ones who found the body. But then we get to investigate the crime scene ourselves, and we find a stiletto heel. The interesting thing about the stiletto heel is that it doesn't belong to Anna. So that means that someone else was there at the crime scene who wasn't Anna.
But nobody would come all the way out here wearing them, except maybe one person.
And we learn that the only type of woman in town who would wear these kind of stiletto heels is Diane, the gallery owner of the local gallery. And we also find some upside down peace sign that we've seen before on the indentation in Anna's hand when we were examining her body. So that's interesting. And then we found some chipped nails, and we also found like a little splinter thing, and the little splinter thing is from the local lumber mill which shut down. And the interesting thing about the local lumber mill is that that's probably where Anna was murdered, because as we know, it was raining when she got killed, but she wasn't wet when she got killed, and her body wasn't wet when it was found. So her body was stashed somewhere, probably murdered somewhere, and then after the rain it was brought out to be presented here in the middle of the park. And that was probably in the lumber mill, because that's an obvious place that's secluded enough and big enough to carry out this elaborate sort of like ritualistic killing. So we're gonna go there now, I think. I hope so. But that will be tomorrow. Oh yes, and there's a little thing, there's a little neat Easter egg reference that is here that I haven't actually heard anyone else pick up on. York, he mentions something about a Hollywood producer, and that he worked on a previous crime where a Hollywood producer was involved, and that producer's name is Joel. That's probably Joel Schumacher. What's interesting about that is that the game is kind of supposed to take place in not 2010, because it was originally supposed to be released in 2007 and started development in 2004. So if York worked a previous case that was on a movie set in Hollywood, then there is actually a good chance that on the set of Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin, you know, the bad one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we know from later games that Swery actually has a bit of a thing for Arnold Schwarzenegger, there was maybe a crazy murderer man or woman running around the set of Batman and Robin, the Joel Schumacher movie. And maybe that explains why that movie is so bad. And I thought that was very funny. And it's also probably a reference to that X-Files episode where Scully and Mulder are also investigating like a murder thing that happens on a movie set, like a weirdo thing. Yeah, I'll have to go rewatch that X-Files episode so I can put it all in my head. But I think it's a reference to that. But I think it's funny that instead of inventing some fictitious movie, York was probably investigating a murder on the set of Batman and Robin, like really extremely bad George Clooney Batman movie from like 1997 that was basically a 2-hour-long toy commercial, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, "Give me the freeze, baby!" I kind of love that. That's a good little Easter egg, and I love that. But I'll tell you more about that tomorrow when I go watch that X-Files episode, and also tomorrow I'll see you again, hopefully in the lumber mill.